This episode of FineScale Modeler's new product rundown features Kinetic's F-16s, Academy's German Halftrack, X+'s Maschinenmensch, ICM's Sally, and English Patient Dual Kit, AMT's Modified Stalker Hauler, Dora Wings CW-21, AFV Club's AVRE Centurion, and Eduard's BF-109G and FW-190.
New product rundown brought to you by Hobby Zone USA, your source for hobby storage solutions, hard to find hobby tools, and aftermarket modeling needs. And by Cult TV Man's Hobby Shop, the place to go for science fiction and fantasy kits, details, masks, decals, and more.
Welcome to New Product Rundown, FineScale Modeler's twice monthly exploration of what's hot. I'm Aaron Skinner.
And I'm Tim Kidwell. Let's get going with Kinetic's new 1/48 scale F-16s.
Released under the Kinetic Gold label, these are not the same as Kinetic's original Fighting Falcon family, which dates back to 2008.
The parts in these initial two kits, the F-16A MLU NATO Viper and the F-16C Block 2542 USAF, are identical, so we'll start with those, then look at the decals.
Surface detail on the airframe parts is fine recessed lines for hatches and panels and petite rivets overall. The lower fuselage is a single part, and optional rear upper fuselages account for differences between the versions. Lower wing halves, vertical tail, and stabilators round out the basic airframe. Optional tabs allow the flaps to be posed up or down, and alternate parts cover differences in the tail ECM fairings and wingtip launch rails.
The cockpit detail comprises a tub with molded console controls, ejection seat and controls, and instrument panel. Intake trunking runs from the chin and over the main gear bay and ends with the front fan. At the other end, the jet pipe, with rear fan and flame holder, exits to a multi-part nozzle. The separate nose can be posed open to show the radar dish. The canopy can be posed open or closed. Other clear parts include lights and optics for weapons and pods.
Speaking of ordnance, the kit features a bunch to hang under your Fighting Falcon, including an AN/AAQ-13 navigation pod, AN/AAQ-14 targeting pod, AN/AAQ-33 sniper targeting pod, and AN/ALQ-184 electronic attack pod, AIM-9M and 9X sidewinders, AIM-120B and 120C AMRAAMs, GBU-12, 49 and 31, and GBU-24s, and 300 and 370-gallon fuel tanks.
Both kits feature cartograph decals. In the NATO kit, markings designed by FCM give stencils and options for 5 Vipers: a Belgian Air Force F-16 in Estonia in 2016, a Netherlands Air Force fighter in Afghanistan in 2006, a Norwegian aircraft in Afghanistan at the same time, a Danish bird from 2016, and a Portuguese Falcon in 2017. The USAF kit has markings designed by Fightertown decals with 3 options: an aircraft from the 147th Fighter Wing, Texas Air National Guard, one from the 148th Fighter Wing, Minnesota ANG, the third from the 112th Fighter Wing, Ohio ANG.
These are impressive kits in the box, and based on other people's experiences building recent Kinetic releases, they should go together with relative ease.
Academy brings us the next kit, a 1/35th scale Sonderkraftfahrzeug, or as we like to say around the FSM offices, a SdKfz 251-1 Ausf C.
This all-new kit of the widely produced German Halftrack features good interior and exterior detail.
The body builds from the belly, sides, fenders, rear with separate doors, driver's panel and roof, and the hood. No engine is given, but most of it's hidden anyway.
The running gear includes nicely molded road wheels and drive sprockets that attach to the suspension arms and get wrapped with multi-part working tracks. The front wheels are molded with the tires and attach to the front axles and leaf spring in a way that should leave the steering movable.
Inside, the floor supports a firewall and dashboard, drivers and radio operators' seats and controls, troop seats and racks. Tools, rifles and more round out the interior, and many of the hatches are separate and posable. 3 German soldiers are supplied, 1 running, 1 leaping off the vehicle, and 1 manning the MG-34 on top.
Decals and color diagrams show 6 marking options: a dunkelgelb and olive grün Halftrack on the eastern front in 1942, an overall dark yellow 21st Panzer Division vehicle in Tunisia in 1943, one in whitewashed winter camo from the 16th Panzer Division on the Eastern Front in winter 1942-43, an overall gray machine from the 14th Panzer Division on the Eastern Front in 1942, one in three-color camo from the Panzer Grenadier Lehr Regiment 901 in Normandy in 1944, and an interestingly camouflaged Eastern Front vehicle from summer 1942.
Academy has packed a ton of detail into this SdKfz 251-1. Now, Aaron, whenever you see a half-track on the show, Aaron always says that, you know what, this is going to look great in the diorama, because he's pushing you guys to do dioramas. I don't know what his ulterior motive is, but I guess it'll look good in the diorama.
It will. And, you know, I'm just trying to generate some more photos for Reader Gallery, some stuff we can shoot.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Build a diorama. X Plus is a relatively new name to the plastic model world, but it has quickly gained a reputation for well-molded and interesting figure kits.
Including this one that I am really excited about, a 1/8 scale Maschinenmensch from the classic sci-fi movie Metropolis, which is one of my personal favorites.
Molded in gold, the robot's body has an inner torso frame to which attaches the front and rear torso, head, and arms, each building up in sections. A separate internal frame bolsters the legs with small details finishing the figure. The final pose mimics the poster for the film.
To display the robot, the kit supplies a base with Metropolis lettering, topped by a platform and the robot's chair. Clear cones support the base and separate the platform, and the instructions indicate they can be painted or left clear.
This appears to be a pretty straightforward kit of an important cinematic icon from the dawn of movies.
Indeed.
The silver screen.
Yes.
Are there other euphemisms from?
Well, this is from the silent era.
Oh, well, that's not really a euphemism. It's just
No,
from where?
it's the dawn, the early days.
Anyway,
of sci-fi cinema.
it looks like a good kit.
It does. The Mitsubishi Ki-21, known to the Allies as Sally, proved to be a successful heavy bomber for the Japanese Air Force in the early days of World War II, and more than 2,000 were produced.
Which makes it somewhat surprising that ICM's new 1/72nd scale kit of the Ki-21-1B is the first in 20 years.
Typical of ICM's recent offerings, the kit features beautifully fine panel lines. The tail, which houses a Stinger machine gun, is separate, a nod to ICM possibly producing the earlier version. The wings show similar detail, and rudder, ailerons, and elevators are separate.
To complement the detail molded inside the fuselage halves, there's a floor with pilot seats and controls, instrument panel, and a bulkhead separating the cockpit from the bombardier's position. Moving aft, there are fuel tanks and positions for the ventral and dorsal gunners. This kit does not offer an open bomb bay.
The engines are well molded with cylinder banks, separate push rods, and sharp cowls. The landing gear appears scale thin and mounts in the nacelles.
The clear parts have defined frames for the cockpit, nose, ventral, and dorsal positions, with clear parts also given for lights. Templates are provided to make masks for all that glass.
A small decal sheet gives markings for 4 early war Ki-21s in overall gray-green, 3 in China in 1940, the 4th a trainer from 1942.
ICM is at the top of its game, it seems, and the Ki-21 is another winner.
Also from ICM, here's an interesting dual boxing of the 1/32nd scale DH-82A Tiger Moth and Stearman Model 75 trainers.
It's marked for the 1996 film, The English Patient, in which both planes figured prominently.
We looked at the ICM Tiger Moth in a one-shot preview and in a workbench review, and you can find those in the links in the description below.
But let's take a quick look at the Stearman. The fuselage halves include part of the gear legs and have well-rendered fabric structure. The feature extends to the wings, stabilizers, and separate control surfaces. Metal parts of the airframe, such as the cockpit surrounds, have fine fasteners and panel lines.
Inside, the cockpit builds from fine frames and floor, seats and instrument panels, and controls.
The exposed engine has detailed cylinders, push rods, intake manifold, and exhaust. Clear parts provide windshields and lights.
The decals supply markings and British civil registrations for the yellow Stearman, and silver tiger moth seen in the movie.
So I'll admit, I've never seen The English Patient, but I do think that providing kits like this where you've got a couple of neat subjects and then tying it into pop culture, that's a cool way to support a kit.
Agreed. From AMT, here's a re-release of the 1/25th scale modified stalker, hauler, and truck.
Now the truck in question, a 1953 Ford, has been in AMT's catalog since 1964. The cab is mostly a single part. The bed is a basic box with style side flares. There are optional Ford and DeSoto engines, grills, wheels, and more, and a one-piece frame.
The hauler trailer has a frame and platforms, and a box at the front with a rack for tires.
New in this release are both pad-printed white wall and white line tires, and new decals with racing numbers and contingencies, and Gulf logos.
So given the age of the tooling involved here, this kit's going to involve a little bit more than average modeling skill to make it look really good.
But we do really like Gulf decals.
Yeah, it'll look great on this truck.
Dora Wings continues its line of graceful Curtiss-Wright aircraft with the new 1/48 scale CW-21B Interceptor.
This kit shares quite a few parts with Dora Wings' SNC-1 Falcon II trainer, which we looked at in a previous MPRD. You can find that in the link in the description.
New here are the fighter fuselage halves with fine recessed panel lines, a revised engine with good cylinder, pushrod, intake, and exhaust details, as well as the cockpit with seat and instrument panel. The clear one-piece canopy has parts of the body molded with it, and there are landing lights. Pre-cut masks are supplied.
The decals provide markings for 2 Netherlands Air Force aircraft in the Dutch East Indies in September 1941, and a captured machine in Japanese insignia from 1945.
The CW-21 didn't have a long career, but it is a pretty plane, and this looks like a good kit of it.
AFV Club's 1/35th scale Centurions have been around for more than 15 years, but they remain nice kits of the British main battle tank.
Now the company has added new parts for the AVRE engineering vehicle, armed with a 165mm demolition gun and sporting a dozer blade and Fascine cradle.
New in this release are revised engine grills for the rear deck, rear and glasses plates, crew hatches, and front fenders.
The change in armament required a new turned metal barrel, mantlet with vinyl dust cover, counterweight, and internal details like the breech and guard. It fits under a revised turret top. There's also a revised bustle stowage basket, multiple components for the Fascine carrier, and the dozer blade.
Decals supply markings for 4 Centurion AVREs. An overall olive drab except for a section of flat black up front, one in bronze green and flat black, a desert sand camouflage tank, and one wearing an interesting, probably field-applied camo pattern.
If you want something to fill the Fascine carrier, AFV Club offers a Royal Engineers modern pipe Fascine, comprising a bunch of black styrene tubes and black thread. The instructions show you how to integrate it into the Centurion kit parts for proper display.
This is another good-looking Centurion, and the addition of the Fascine could really make for some interesting display or diorama ideas.
Twice. He did it twice in one show.
Tell me I'm not inspiring you guys to build something different.
Tell him he's
Have
not.
some fun.
Tell him he's not. Finally, let's take a quick look at a couple of new Eduard releases. First up is the 1/48 scale Bf 109G 14AS, a high-altitude variant of the German fighter.
The kit parts are pretty standard for late Messerschmitt, so we'll focus on the 5 decal options included here. There's one from JG6 at Bissell, Germany in January 1945, a fighter from JG300 at Jüteborg Dam in autumn 1944, a JG11 plane at Wunsdorf in October 1944, a Bf 109 from JG5 in Norway in March 1945, and an Italian ANR plane from April 1945.
Also new is the 1/48 scale Weekend Edition FW190A8. These kits typically lack photo-etched metal parts and masks. Decals in this kit include markings for 4 Focke-Wulfs, a JG1 fighter at Bad Lipspringe in April 1944, a striking JG-10 aircraft at Göteborg in November 1944, a JG-5 bird in Norway in February 1945, and an aircraft from SG-2 at Kitzingen in May 1945.
Eduard always does a great job with these follow-up releases, and I'm sure these kits will be popular.
Yeah, so look for reviews of the F-16s, the Halftrack, and the Sally on FineScale.com.
Where you can also find a ton of other great information, including more videos, how-to stories, scores, hundreds, more than 2,000 reviews at this point, I think, right?
There are.
Yep.
And as we tell you every time we're on, make sure you also stop by KalmbachHobbyStore.com, where you can buy gifts, you can get calendars, you can get puzzles, you can get modeling supplies, paint, tools, books, magazines, all sorts of stuff. Visit there, get whatever your modeling heart desires.
Thanks for watching. I'm Aaron Skinner.
And I'm Tim Kibwell. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. And English patient Dooku. Weiss monthly exploration of.
And so it begins. Both kits feature cardigan.
These are impressive kits in the box.
Why do you always gotta go to like Billy Mays? Why is that your go-to? Sonderkraft Zeugwagen?
Fahrzeug.
Fartzeug.
Fahrzeug. You left out the far. You keep wanting to say fart, and then you leave it out.
Sonderkraft Fahrzeug.
Sally.
You're such a Sally.
Can I sally forth on this one now?
Sally forth.
Are you ready?
I don't know. Are you ready?
Well, she's rolling.
Oh, okay. All right. I was just waiting for her to say, "Yeah, get this done."
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Here we go.
You're saying you need direction.
Always. My wife knows that. See? She got what she wanted.
Direction.
Direction. That's right.